Welcome to Through the Trauma podcast. My name is Amber Larkins, published photographer, storytelling expert, visual artist, entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. This podcast was born from one question: how do I get inspiring stories of triumph out to the people who need to hear them the most? Come with me, enter my world, where lives are getting changed, heroes are getting developed, and greatness is being achieved. All right, so we are live with Jules, and this is Jules Smith. She is one of the original transformation through trauma clients. She kind of was an amazing testing ground for me, and I felt so privileged that she was even honored that she would even let me photograph her story. Jules is an amazing human. She really is. And I've known her for ever since we shot. I've known her, and she has gotten into doing fashion. She's modeling the runway. She's doing all kinds of stuff in the fashion industry, just raising a big awareness and doing all kinds of stuff in the creative space as well. So, Jules, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Amber. I'm so grateful to know you and so blessed to be your number one. That was such a beautiful shoot that we did, and such an amazing experience. It's still some of my favorite to this day.
Well, I appreciate you so much. You don't even know. And it's funny kind of how we even met, because we kind of met on a model call. And I was shooting a fitness brand, and the fitness brand was very specific in what they needed. So they looked through all these different models. So everyone that they didn't choose, I reached out. I'm like, hey, you want to shoot? And Jules is like, well, actually, I'm a photographer, and I model for I think you were in creative school.
So yeah. I model for the NOC College of Art over here. And their students reach out to me, as well as their staff, to come and model for the school. And recently, I did start doing more fashion based. So I started actually making designs, and they're all inclusive designs. So they're based around people who have disabilities, to make fashion more inclusive, with things like magnetic snaps for buttons, full length zippers, zipper pulls for people who have hand dexterity issues, so that they can stick their whole hand in and pull the zipper down, and just making things with stretch and easy to dress yourself.
That's incredible. So tell us, this is so amazing to me. And having followed your journey a little bit, from the time that we shot together, which it's funny how that even happened. You're like, here, read my blog. And I read her blog, and I'm like, oh my gosh, her story is amazing. The overcoming. The trauma is obviously horrific, but the overcoming that you've experienced. And then even talking to you today and hearing the way that you've channeled that trauma that made you kind of who you are, and you've channeled it into doing something so amazing. I'm so blessed to have you here and to talk to you. But so where can people find this fashion?
You can find this fashion at Fashion is for Everybody. It is on Instagram, and they have a Facebook as well as a website. You can also find their links through my profile, which is at Julie Blue Models.
We'll put all that. We'll put all that in the show notes too, so that people can, get in contact with you, because that's just an amazing thing. And I know that everyone's really excited to just kind of hear how you got there, the journey.
Oh, I'm so excited to share. It was so beautiful how I got here, and I would have never chose to do this type of fashion or to start making fashion like this if I hadn't been pulled in for just a moment to help helped make some adjustments last year's fashion line. And that's how this grew into our second debut coming this September.
Wow. Well, take us back, Jules. Take us back to where kind of this all started in your journey, and just kind of a little bit about your story.
So a little bit about me and my story is I was 278 pounds. I was about 19 years old when I got pregnant, and my child didn't have a father, but I had a very supportive family, and that family was with me throughout my entire journey of being a mother. My journey was ended when my daughter was 13 months old. She got diagnosed with a type of liver cancer that took up 4 out of 6 lobes in her liver. It had a solid liver tumor, and they could not operate. And there's only 2 types of this cancer. Both are extremely rare. It's about a 1 in a million type of disease. And of that 1 million disease, only 2 people in all of America are diagnosed with this type of cancer per year. And there's 2 types. One is very aggressive and susceptible to chemo. And is not susceptible to chemo. The other is not aggressive and is very susceptible to chemo. And she had the one that was very aggressive and did not take the chemo. So by the time we found out, she had stage 4 cancer and the solid liver tumor. So we tried 1 round of chemo that blew out her kidneys. And then there was nowhere else for the toxins from the chemo to escape from. So we tried to do blood dialysis to clean out her blood. That did not work. So it had nowhere else to escape but through her skin. And that was another 1 in a million disease called, I can't remember what it's called. I always have trouble remembering the name, but it basically is when you have too many toxins in and not enough toxins out. So it releases through the skin in the size of blisters that were about the size of softballs. So she would have died from an infection if I didn't take her off the machines. So I call her my $2 million baby. And after that, I decided to not live depressed and try to squeeze out the most out of life, because I knew she would not want me to be sad for her passing. And I use her as like my fire, my guide, and my strength to keep going and persevering. So when she passed away about a year later, I decided to have a weight loss transformation surgery. It was a gastric bypass, and I ended up losing over 120 pounds, and I got down to about 140 pounds, and I stayed there for the last 13 years.
I mean, that's an incredible story. And, you know, being a mom and not ever having experienced a loss like that, I can only imagine the pain and the heartache. And I honestly don't know of another type of pain or heartache that would match that, to be honest with you. That's, as a mother, I think it's something that we just can't even imagine. Can you talk a little bit about like what you experienced emotionally through that time?
You know, yes, emotionally, as a person who struggles with bipolar disease, I also was struggling with depression. I went back to work and I did not find joy in work. So I took about a month off, went back, and was not able to perform my duties at the job that I had. And they told me, you know, we'd love for you to come back, but we think you maybe need some more time to heal And I agreed with them that I was not suitable to work at that time. I ended up not going back to work and instead going back to school and trying to refine myself. But for the longest, I was so lost. I didn't know what to do. I would look at my mom and say, Mom, what do I do? I'm so used to waking up every morning at 7:30, getting a bottle ready, having my routines down, getting breakfast done. After breakfast is done, we do our playtime. After playtime, we do reading and we learning. And I was just lost, I don't have this schedule anymore. I now have a completely empty schedule that I can do whatever I want with. And it's not that I wanted to do other things. It was just, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. My mom says, well, love, you have to wake up every morning and you have to take a shower and you have to brush your hair and you have to brush your teeth and you just have to do the normal things in life. And to me, it was so hard because I did not know how to be normal at that point. So, and I mean, it's normal anyways, but for me, it was just, I had to create an entirely new routine that was based on not being a mother. So, and it was very hard, I still struggle probably to this day. She would have been 14 years old this year. And, it's her death anniversary, or what I call her eternal birthday in heaven, approaches us. I still like to go back and reflect on the journey and the process and where she would like me to lead my life now. And I still use her as a guidance through that.
Her life has impact, even though short, it's almost as if God had, there was impact there. And how do you think your life would look different, had that not happened? Do you ever think about that?
I do think about that a lot. And I realized that I had to lose her so I could find me, because when she was alive, I was lost, emotionally, physically, everything. I had no want or drive in my life, And even though she was a mother, I think I was still dealing with a lot of postpartum depression, especially having a mental illness on top of that. And then coming from the mental illness, trying to, when you're pregnant, we have to get off of our medications, which is really dangerous for somebody who has a mental health issues, to be off your medicine, because your medicine is what balances the chemicals in your brain. And for me, getting off the medicine to become pregnant, have the child, and then get back on the medication was very hard, because my medication it's a very sedative medication. And so if I didn't have the love and support of my family there to help me with her, I would have never been able to be the type of mother I was for her. But I still know that there is no going back and having what ifs, because she was so beautiful and I was so lost. I was making a lot of bad decisions, a lot of bad choices. I think a lot of that was due to my mental health. And it was oddly enough that when I lost her, I gained back my mental health, my strength, my will to keep pushing towards life and to live. Before her, I was so confused. I didn't know where I wanted to go in life. I mean, I didn't have didn't graduate college. I didn't have a career. I was not financially stable. I could not live on my own. I couldn't even support her. So for me to, be able to stand on my own 2 feet now, it's not only important for me, it's important for my future children, because I was not able to give that to her. And I think if she had still been alive, I probably would have been still making those bad choices, because I didn't have confidence in myself back then. Whereas now I feel confident in knowing who I am.
You're such a remarkable person. That is, I can only relate so far as, I dealt with some postpartum myself, going through pregnancy and the after effects. And I think a lot of women do, but coupling on top of that, the hormonal influx of going through postpartum, having to deal with a mental illness, which you're medicated, but then you can't be medicated for a certain amount of time. Then having to go through not even what was like a little over a year later, losing her, like that is a lot to break anybody down. And for you to be sitting here today talking about, I have a brand, I've gained confidence. Like it takes such a strong person to pull themselves out of that kind of turmoil. I mean, that's a lot to go through. You're a remarkable person.
Thank you. It is a lot to go through, and I'd be lying if I say I don't struggle from time to time. I mean, I believe we all have struggles. But I was 20 years old when I lost her. Well, 21 when I lost my child, and, be 20, 21, 22, having a child that young is one thing. And then you go and you lose her. It's like, you were set in this, you had this mindset of like, this is my life now. Right. And then for like a solid 13 months, a year and a half, you were dead set on, this is my life. I have to figure out how I can be the best mother for her. How can I gain that financial stability? How can I give her a full and happy life? How can I find her a father? I was really set on finding her a father when I should have just opened my eyes to realize that she had father figures. She had my father as a father figure. He was a guide for her. She didn't necessarily need a man that was married to me to be there as a dad. She had other people who gave her that lovingly, experience and support and guidance. So I wish I would have taken probably a little more time to appreciate the things that I did have instead of focusing on the things that I did not.
That's a life lesson for really anything in life, right? It's like, it's as human beings, I feel like we almost have to remind ourselves of that on a daily basis of like, you have to be appreciative of the things, because it's so easy to lose perception and perceive like I don't have these things. But for you to have so much knowledge, from this situation and then just the other things that you've also dealt with, it's like for you to have this much knowledge, you're very wise. And I just think that your story has so many parts that could literally inspire so many people, from being a young mother, struggling with mental health, having a child that got sick. I mean, even dealing with sickness is got to be taxing on you. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
So now I am 34 years old. I will be 35 this May. But you're right, dealing with sickness in general. She was a St. Jude's baby. So for about 2.5 weeks at the end of her life, I spent living in the hospital of St. Jude's, and I got to know many families and many other children, struggling and going through similar issues. So seeing that turmoil that the sickness can cause, I was very grateful that the Lord did not drag it out for me, because I don't know if I could have handled that much. It might have been too much.
It was sudden.
So,
It was sudden. There wasn't a lot of time from the time you found out she was sick till the time she passed.
correct. She was, it was right after her first birthday. So she had like a normal life for a whole year. And right after her birthday, we noticed she was getting really sick. She actually started regressing, and she went from learning to walk to not walking at all. She wouldn't even crawl. She just wanted to be held. And she stopped eating actual food, table food, because she had been eating actual people food at the time of her birthday. And she went back to eating baby food, and then eventually went back to just bottles and wouldn't even eat baby food. Then we finally noticed that she had a bulge coming out of her stomach, and I kind of thought maybe she swallowed something. So I demanded x-rays, and I had taken her to about 7 different doctors and demanded an x-ray at her physician finally the last day. And they called me back, and it's like the last nap that I had with her, I had like this weird premonition, God, He gives you these visions, and like sometimes they're just brutal and honest. And in this vision, I had this dream that she was no longer with me, and we were living in a house that I was building for us at the time because I felt like I needed to be on my own. It was like an already ready-made house. I was just picking out paints and stuff, and I was going to try to stand on my 2 feet, because it was very important for me to be stable for her. And I just remember, staring at that house in her bedroom, and her bedroom's completely made up. And the thought that I have is that she's not here and she's never coming back. And then I woke up, and my mom's like, we got to go to the hospital now. They think she may have calcification of the liver, which is a calcium deposit buildup in her liver, because they could see the solid mass. They just didn't know what it was. So we ran over to another hospital, and we went to like 3 or 4 different doctors that day. But like, we ran to another hospital. They told us, you need to go get admitted across the street right away. Like, we waited enough to get in front of the guy. He lifted the file, said, you need to go across the street. We went across the street. They admitted us right away, got her ready for all these tests and IVs and everything. And they just left us waiting for the rest of the evening. And then about 12 or 1 o'clock, the doctor who was on call, he had just got off at work, and he came to us and he said, going against medical advice, I suggest you go straight away to St. Jude's, and I've already called and gotten you accepted, and they're ready for you. You just have to get there. So my dad's boss, and they were going to shoot us on ambulance, and that would have been like an 8-hour ambulance ride from Louisiana up to Memphis. And I just couldn't see putting her through that much pain, like having to ride in a thing like that for 8 hours with IVs and everything. So we took her out of the hospital. My dad's boss heard about everything that was happening, and he said, here, let me get you guys flown up there. So he helped fly us up here, and I lived here in Memphis for 2.5 weeks at the hospital. I mean, I left with nothing but the clothes on my back. I didn't have time to go home, grab a bag or anything. And I was just wearing a t-shirt, some pants, slides, shoes or something. I remember my friend, the shoes that I had were very uncomfortable. My friend at the time, she went and grabbed me a pair of tennis shoes out of her car, so I didn't have to worry about wearing uncomfortable shoes, which at the time is probably not much, but I was so grateful for that. And we got up there, and that weekend, I think this would happen on a Friday. So Saturday we got there. She got all of her admits done, and we were at the hotel on the actual campus grounds for the hospital. And we got through Sunday. They gave us some things to help ease her comfort. Come Monday, we went through a whole round of clinicals, did all of her tests, got her confirmed of her diagnosis, and she went right into ICU. And she did not come out of her medically induced coma, and she died there. So it was a lot. It was like bam, bam, bam. And, I just remember that I was speechless about what was happening. I didn't know how to process anything. And I just the day that she passed away was the day they told me that the chemo was not working, and that the toxins have no way to escape but through her skin, and that if we don't take her off the machines, she'll probably die from an infection through her skin. And so it was like 3:00 in the morning. And at the time, I was as a heavy smoker. So I was probably smoking 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day, which is extremely a lot. And I went outside, and it's just like a smoke-free campus, but I just went outside. I was like, I'm going to smoke anyways. I need something, I thought at the time. And I looked up, and it's like 3 a.m. 3 a.m., we know there's no light. There's no clouds. There's nothing. It's completely darkness outside, right? I looked up, and this entire sky was pink. And I just knew, I just knew this was it. That was it. That was the last time. And so I called my brother. He didn't believe me. He's like, it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. The next morning, my dad had already left. My mom, when she finally came to the hospital, I tried to give them as much rest in between shifts. We took shifts with her so that we could all be there. She was never alone, and no one person had to take on too much responsibility. But so I tried to give them rest, and I knew that, my dad was leaving to go back home to go to work because he had to. And my mom, she doesn't sleep well as is. So for her to, I waited for her to get to the hospital, which is about 10 o'clock. And that's when they told her. And at the time, my dad was already in the air. So as soon as he landed about 12, we called and told him, and he immediately got right back onto the plane and flew back. And by 1 o'clock, he made it back, and we took her off the machines, and it was within seconds that she stopped breathing.
And she was at peace at that point, like no more pain, no more suffering.
No. I don't think she was suffering during those 2.5 weeks, because with her being in a medically induced coma, she might mentally be there, but like with all the medication, I don't think she could actually physically feel the pain. I do feel like as soon as we induced her into that medically induced coma, she was gone.
So that's such a hard thing to overcome. And again, I just have to say, like, I can't even imagine. If you had the opportunity to talk to another mom that was maybe in the middle of this, or even in that I'm not sure moment of like, I'm not really sure if my child's going to make it or if they're not, how would you comfort them, or what would you have advice to give them?
when you're going through something like that, there's no answer, there's no how-to steps to get through anything. All you can do is choose the darkness or choose the light. You can either choose to stop and end everything here, or you can choose to keep going and see what lies ahead. Because we all know that God gives us beauty for our ashes, and He will not put anything more on you that you can't handle. And so knowing that, just, I say, have somebody that you look up to, have somebody that you can look to for inspiration. I honestly don't think I would have come this far if it wouldn't have been for my faith. I don't get to talk about my Christianity a lot, but I am. I'm a huge Christian, Catholic, born and raised, but I follow all types of Christianity because I pull bits and pieces from every religion, and I feel connected to certain parts of things. And I feel like through that, I have more guidance on how I can live life and which direction I need to go. So when I was going through all the after effects of everything, after everything had been said and done, being so lost and even more lost, for the direction of my life, I watched a lot of Joel Osteen, and I know he's a feel-good preacher, but at the time I needed to feel something other than pain. So I needed to feel good about something. And if I didn't change the types of thoughts that I was having, I probably would have not found myself and become confident in knowing who I am today. So I say, find something that inspires you, motivates you, and it guides you. For me, it was listening to, Joel Osteen and podcasts and things that enlightened my mental stability, because at the time, my mental stability was wavering. I was teeter-tottering between light and darkness all the time. So that's my advice. Find a book, find some podcasts, listen to somebody has gone through things, and, try to find inspiration and try to find beauty for your ashes. I decided that I was not going to wait for God to provide that beauty for me. And instead, I spend every day creating it, because if I don't, then I will feel like she had died for no reason. So every day, what can I do beautiful to honor her and honor her life? That's what I try to do.
Yeah. And, I believe that every life, no matter if it's a child who doesn't even make it out of the womb, every life has a meaning and has a purpose and makes a difference. And, no matter how long or how short, it's like every life has a destiny, and her life, her destiny, it served a purpose. And when you look at life in the scope of everything, like, life is short, really, for all of us. I mean, in the scope of how long the earth has been here, life is short. It's short. And we have to, it's like everybody has their own thing that they're called to do on this earth. And somehow she was able to inspire you to do the thing that you're called to do here. And looking back, there's no telling how many people you're impacting, how many people you're inspiring. And I know from the moment that I met you and we talked about this, I was really nervous and scared with you, especially because I know this is such a traumatic thing. And knowing myself, having never experienced this, I can be empathetic, but I cannot know the emotions that you're dealing with. And I try, I remember with you, I tried to be super cautious, and you were so open and gracious. And I'm just like, I knew very, very early on that your story would inspire and impact many. And I truly believe that God aligned our paths, so that we can spread your story, get more awareness to it, because how many people struggle. I've shot another mom actually who has had lost her child to cancer as well. And it's just a horrible, horrible thing. And her too, she's found a lot of, I think, security and bonding with other people. And the more people that I talk to on this caliber that share their stories, it's like, this is why story is so, so important, because the people that you're going to inspire and impact through your story. And you're just like, I've already said it, but you're a remarkable person. And I'm just so blessed that that you chose to come here and share. And I know this is difficult for you, sharing, but you're amazing, Jules.
Thank you. If I didn't have the want to keep seeking knowledge, I just don't think, searching for wisdom, for me, I didn't have a support group. Well, I have my family as support, but I didn't have a lot of. Starting to see more commonly that there are support groups for mothers who have gone through this. And at the time, like, I had heard about it, but we didn't have that sort of community in Louisiana where I was from. So I didn't know about as much inclusion and things that were readily available for survivors and trauma people until I got here to Nashville. And I started to learn that, it's not only okay to have trauma, but you can grow and heal from it too. You can use it as a strength. I didn't know where or what I was doing in Louisiana after her death. I just knew that I was supposed to redirect my life and reinvent myself and change who I was for the better. And so that's why I decided to lose weight. I went on a fitness journey for a while. I started doing a lot of CrossFit and a definite wisdom journey, because I was always seeking someone who had more knowledge than me. Because I didn't feel like at the time I was able to talk about it as freely as I do today. So, when I was looking for that wisdom, I just looked to any wisdom to find. And, sorry, lost my train of thought. But yeah, I know a lot of people who, it's funny because the more I began to talk about my trauma, the more other people reached out to me about their trauma. Mm-hmm. And I have so many friends who have lost children, and it is so easy for us to share our stories and be kindred spirits together and, reach out to one another and say, hey, just checking in on a wellness check. I wanted to know how you're doing, and say that I'm thinking about you and that I miss you, and those little moments, they help. I recently have one of my friends who's my coworker from Louisiana. She got married, and her husband I think it was in Scotland. So she's been doing some traveling, but she ended up having a child, and about a year or two later got pregnant and had another one. And within like the first month or two, the baby passed. I'm not sure why, but I just remember her reaching out to me and saying, I don't know what to do. I'm so lost. I don't know where to go. And I was like, to be honest, time is the best medicine, because there is no answer as to how to navigate loss or grief. And everyone grieves differently. So I just told her, try to find some books to read, and try to remember to live for them instead of living for their memory. You know what I mean? Let them live through you in the things you do every day, because no matter if their vessel here on earth is present or not, they're present inside you. And every time that you succeed, they succeed. And when you go forward and you live your life to the fullest, they live their life to the fullest, because they are part of you and they're always going to be there.
So real quick, what advice would you give someone like that has never experienced this type of loss, but they know someone, or they are friends with someone who has experienced? Because this is one of those hard things. I actually just had a really good friend lose a child, and it's sometimes you want to do the right thing. You want to give space, but you don't want to give too much space. Do you reach out? It's like you don't really know what to do. So do you have advice as far as that goes from someone that might be looking for what to do?
Yes, believe it or not, there's a lot you can do, because that person or that friend is not going to reach out, and they're not going to be able to talk about things for a long time. So you'll have to be the one to reach out to them. And you'll want to, like, as we as women say, we reach down and pull others up. Well, you want to reach out to them and pull them in, because right now they feel on the outskirts. They feel like they're in this outside bubble that they don't know how to get back into the center of life. So you have to reach in and say, hey, we're having a girls' night. Would you like to come and eat some food and play some games? And no, they might not be all bubbly, but being there and having something to do to take their mind off of wondering constantly, it helps, just taking them to lunch. Maybe they don't want to do a girls' night yet. Maybe they're not ready for that much social interaction. So maybe a one-on-one lunch or a one-on-one coffee date, or maybe just a walk in the park to talk, and, have a picnic, just something that involves you being present for them without overwhelming them too much. And I know that's easier said than done, but if I didn't have people reach out to me to ask me how I'm doing, I don't know if I would have gotten as far as I did, because I really had a huge support system. I mean, my entire family, not only immediate, but my relatives too, they were all so supportive. My grandfather, he's very feeble when my daughter passed, but he made the trip twice to Memphis by car to be there with me. And just having him, and then my uncle and my cousins come up there and be there with me during that whole time. And then afterwards, them being so close, and then my parents being there for me, my brothers. If I didn't have a support unit, I'm not sure, because they helped me to get out of my head. And when you are going through a loss, you're very in your head. You're in your head, your heart. You don't know which way's up or which way's down. So
if you reach out to a friend like that, do you recommend asking? Is it, do you want to talk or do you not want to talk, or do you recommend? I mean, there's two sides to that. Like, do I say something? I don't want them to think I'm insensitive, that I don't care, but then do I bring it up and put their mind back in that place?
So you could definitely start by saying, hey, I just want to check in on you. I know things are rough, but, I want to check in on you. I want to know how you're doing, where your headspace is at. That's a way of asking them how they're doing without personally asking how to, what's on your mind, what they're feeling with their child. There's no, I guess, proper way to ask other than just, hey, how are you doing? That's like the simplest, because, and then just inviting them to do something. If I didn't have friends to pull me out of the house to go places and get my mind off of things, or even just try to make me laugh, I probably would have not chosen to go light over dark, because I was in that teeter zone. And when you're going through that, you're in a teeter zone, because the darkness, we know the darkness can consume very fast in our brain. We can fall into that depression, and it's even harder to get out of it once you've fallen into it. And it comes almost quicker than, seeing something beautiful and coming out towards the light can do. So just being there and being like, hey, I'm going to, I'm going to Target. Do you want to go? That's easy, right? It's not pressure. It's light. You can grab a coffee while you're there. You could shop some clothes, and, you can be like, are you in need of anything? Let's get you some face stuff, and go take them over to the cosmetic area, get them some eye patches and face masks, and just little things like that. Maybe take them to get a mani, anything to help them get their mind out of that present state. I think it could be a lot easier than we let ourselves on to believe it to be. I know as friends and support system, it can be hard to say, hey, how's it going? Because you feel like you might be putting them in a position that was forcing them to talk about it, but it's not. The hey, how are you doing is just a wellness check. That is not pushing them to talk about their trauma, but more or less letting them know that you're here for them no matter what the trauma is.
That is so valuable. That information is so valuable because, it's funny. I had this situation happen back years ago, before I had a miscarriage, which I feel like, is different than this situation. But before that, I had a friend who had a miscarriage, and I just didn't understand it. So I didn't know how to be there for her. And it wasn't until I went through it myself that then I was like, this is so much more heartbreaking than what I could have ever imagined. And I'm sure any kind of grief is probably like that. But I don't know, as I get older and I get more experiences under my belt, it's like I realize how much I don't know. And sometimes if I don't know how to navigate or how to talk to someone or, how to be there for someone, it's very enlightening for someone to come along and say, no, this is kind of like, this is what you should do, or how to approach that situation. So that is going to help a lot of people right there, just you sharing that, because I think a lot of times people don't know and they're scared about to approach. Yeah.
They really are scared about how to ask how another person's doing. But I think the best way to ask is literally to be as blank and blunt as possible. Hey, how's it going? That leaves it open-ended, and, you're not pressuring them to talk about their trauma, only to talk about how their moment is. And
that's awesome advice. Man, Jules, I'll tell you, like, again, one more time. You're super inspiring on so many levels. And, you know, I thank you so much because I truly believe that your story has impact and it carries so much weight. And I believe there's so many people out there that it will inspire. I truly do. And I feel honored that you sat down with me today and chose to share this with me. And through the tears and through the heartache and, I wish I could give you a virtual hug. I wish we were there in person so I could hug you.
We'll have lunch.
Yes. We definitely need to do that. I'm going to try to attach some of the photos that we took from your session, either in the show notes or on the podcast at the end. But there's still some of my favorite. I always get really caught up emotionally in these sessions, but your story, just everything was inspired. I feel like it was truly inspired by God, the whole shoot. But even looking back on that, it's like that you are the pioneer for this project. Because you were the very first one. And I just want you to know like how much you truly mean to me for sharing. And, this is even this interview it's hard because it's like, I'm not sure what to ask. And, and just your willingness and your heart is so sweet. And, I just can't wait to see where you go with everything that you're doing, all of, the awareness around, grief, the awareness around mental health, the awareness around this, helping people with disabilities get clothing that's going to fit them. Girl, you're doing big.
Make look good.
Yeah, and make them stylish on top of that. But that's a big thing too. Yeah, but that's huge too, to give people confidence, because we live in a world where it's hard to get confidence. I feel like, we're just inundated with so much stuff. So just giving people that is a huge tool.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. That's the one thing that is so hard for people nowadays, is to have confidence in themselves, because they're always comparing to A, B, and C on social media and X, Y, and Z over on TikTok. And it's like, you just need to come and be yourself, and maybe have friends who can help dress you every once in a while, to help give you that inner confidence, I really do. I hope that everybody sees how beautiful their body is, as imperfect as it is. That's my number one thing, is that no one person in this world is perfect. It doesn't matter how many surgeries you have. It doesn't matter how much work you do on your body. You're never going to be perfect. You're always going to have something, and everyone has something. But that does not mean that we can't be beautifully imperfect.
I love that. I love that, girl. That's like so perfect. Right? I love empowered women. What do they say? Empowered women, empower women.
Empower women, yes.
And that's what you do. That's what you do. And I can't wait to see where this road leads and how far you go from here, girl. Because you got a lot going for you, and a lot of why pushing you. But you're awesome. You're remarkable. I'm so happy to have you here today. Is there anything you want to add before we close up?
I feel like we covered a lot of what I'm about, what I do, which is, like you said, trying to empower and inspire others to push through your trauma and keep going.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jules, I appreciate you so much. And I'm sure we will be in touch, but I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart so happy to have you here today. And again, thank you for sharing your story, as difficult as it is. And, you know, you're going to make massive impact.
So much, Amber, for having me. If all we do is reach a few souls, then we reached more than we did the day before, you know? And that's, you know, I'm completely grateful for the few lives that my story does impact, and maybe it will make waves one day. But, you know, for now, I'm so grateful to impact the people who do reach out to me and who do hear this, because if it weren't for people like you who, you know, reach inside me to tell my story, I probably wouldn't have gotten this far. So I'm very grateful for you, grateful for your podcast and your series with this. You know, like I said, our images are still some of my favorite to this day, and I will continue to share them every year, twice a year, on my daughter's birthday and on her eternal anniversary. So,
well, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Through the Trauma podcast. If you have found value in this episode or believe in the mission behind what we are doing, please subscribe so that you never miss any future episodes. Also, be sure to check out our transformation project at transformationthroughtraumaproject.com, where we help inspirational stories get heard on a larger scale through multiple platforms. If you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Until next time.